Hello, in this video we'll discuss the content in Unit 4, Activity 3, and we'll focus on graphic texts. So to start with, what is a graphic text? Well, a graphic text combines images and words. So you can see an example right here from the Waterloo Public Health and Emergency Services Department explaining physical distancing in the time of COVID. Right? So we've got images and we've got words, and so you combine them together and you have a graphic text. And as you'll see, as we continue on in this activity, a graphic text can come in many different forms. Okay? Some students tell me that they prefer graphic texts to written texts because they like to be able to visualize what they're learning. So I often hear students tell me that they're visual learners and that they prefer graphic texts. Anyway, the criteria for a graphic text involves visual appeal. So the graphic text has to be something that grabs the reader's attention and that clearly presents the information in an inviting way. It needs to have some sort of labeling so that the reader can clearly and quickly understand the information that's being presented. It should have some sort of title, and in some cases more than one title. Sometimes there will be subtitles in a graphic text. It should have what we would call good proximity to text, and that means that the images need to be close to the information that they're clarifying or explaining. And so you want to make sure that when you're organizing a graphic text, that you're clearly putting the images and the text related to that image close enough together so that the reader can link them and know that they go together. And then lastly, compactness. So you need to make sure in a graphic text that the images don't kind of waste space, and that you're not wasting space in general. You're trying, as it says here, if the images don't save space, then they're not usually very helpful. If you can say something quicker in a few words than you can in a giant, complicated image, then the image is not useful. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to compact a message in a graphic text in a quick and easy form. So you don't want to waste space. You want to use all of the space in a graphic text for a purpose. Okay? Keep these 5 criteria handy. You'll need to understand these 5 criteria for one of the assignments that you're going to do in this activity. And I would also expect you to remember these criteria for graphic texts, say on the final exam. If we continue on, in the action section, we have types of graphic texts. And so you'll see a listing on the left-hand side here of different types of graphic texts. You'll see an explanation of each type, and then you'll see an example. I wouldn't expect you to necessarily memorize all of the different types here, but I would expect you to be familiar. If I mention tables or flowcharts or diagrams, I would expect you to know what I'm talking about. So you definitely want to take a look through here and make sure you're comfortable with the different types. Again, read through the explanations and take a look at the examples. Next, we have strategies for reading graphic texts. So it says when reading texts, we generally read from left to right or top to bottom. We don't necessarily read graphic texts this way. Sometimes they're presented differently than just a standard written text. So take a look at these 5 tips here. They give you 5 tips or strategies on how you can read graphic texts effectively. You're going to have to read graphic texts and explain them in your assignment in this activity. So again, it's important that you're comfortable reading them. And then if we continue on here at the bottom, in the consolidation, we're going beyond reading graphic texts to talk about how to create effective graphic texts. And so, kind of like we talked about with memos and letters in previous activities, you need to know the audience and the purpose of your graphic text. If you're going to sit down and create a graphic text, you need to know who you're trying to reach, because that's going to help you help dictate how you're going to design the graphic text. And you certainly need to know the purpose. What is the overall message that you're trying to convey in your graphic text? choosing graphic texts. The type of graphic text that you're going to use depends on the information you want to convey. So for example, some types of information will work better as a diagram, and other types of information might work better as a table or a flowchart. It depends on what you're trying to say and who you're trying to present to. That's going to largely dictate which type of graphic text you're going to use. And that's about it here. That covers our content in this activity. Make sure you go through it carefully. Make sure you're comfortable with these strategies on how to read a graphic text. Make sure you're comfortable with the different types of graphic texts. And maybe most importantly, make sure you're comfortable with the 5 criteria of an effective graphic text, because you will have to apply these criteria in the assignments.